Today on Brick by Brick, we are joined by Matt Aston. Matt is the president of GPRS, the nation's largest company specializing in the detection of underground utilities. He has over 20 years of experience with risk management and promoting safe work environments. We talk about the changing use of technology in the industry and a proactive mindset versus a reactive mindset. You're listening to Brick by Brick, the podcast about the built world and the people who make it possible. Let's get going. Hello, Matt. Thanks for joining me on Brick by Brick. I'm really excited to have you.
Thanks, Jason. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
So, Matt, you're the president of GPRS, correct?
I am.
And how did that end up? How did you end up in that position? Give me a little bit about your background and a little about the organization.
Yeah, so we started in Toledo, Ohio, and I was working as a financial analyst for a large automotive company based here in the Toledo area. Realized that the corporate world was not for me. My father owned his own business. From the time I was 3 years old. It was a concrete cutting and drilling company, and so I talked to him about going into business with him, and he actually suggested that I pursue something on my own. And he gave me a magazine. In that magazine, there was an advertisement for this ground penetrating radar, and one of the applications that it identified was helping the construction world identify the placement of electrical that was in the path of saw cutting. And I knew that was a huge issue on his jobs. It seemed like if they were going to saw cut in a floor, it was just a matter of time before they were going to get into electrical. So that was really what drove me into this business, was try to help solve that one problem. And from there, we've used it on we still do a lot of that work, but there are other applications now that our company provides value in ways that I did not anticipate at that time.
Yeah, as you do as an entrepreneur, finding the applications that you didn't even know existed.
Right.
Let's talk about that. So what does the organization do as related to risk management? We talked a little about the construction use case. What are the actual use cases that you're seeing in the field today that risk managers should be knowing about so that they can get their arms wrapped around it and, tell their project managers on construction sites or wherever else that is applicable?
So there's really four services to our business. 80% are ground penetrating radar. And with that, I would divide it into two categories: underground applications and concrete applications. So on the risk side, the value proposition that we would offer with the ground penetrating radar services is damage prevention and safety enhancement, where anytime that there's an excavation on a construction site, there's risk of underground utilities. That is the biggest application for our services today, is helping to identify the exact location of private utilities before an excavation. When everybody knows about 811, and 811 will only go so far. There are limitations to what 811 is able to do. There are no limitations to what we're able to do, with our services. We can go anywhere the client requests.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Underground is the first application within ground penetrating radar, and then still concrete. Initially, our goal was to focus on helping construction companies find electrical that was in the path of saw cutting. Now it's also, we can lay out the precise location of reinforcing steel within a concrete slab. So if penetrations have to be made into a building and there's concerns about hitting reinforcing steel, rebar, or post-tension cable, we can precisely lay out the exact placement of that steel within a slab. So if you had steel that was 8 inches on center, our project managers could lay that out, and you could probably drill a 6-inch diameter core between an 8-inch rebar grid without ever touching any steel.
Yeah, amazing. So it's like X-ray for these really complex, you only want to cut once kind of solutions.
You got it. And the one thing I would say about X-ray is, there are X-ray applications. We don't do X-ray. One of the reasons is there's a radiation hazard that's associated with it.
Yeah.
So you would have to clear like a 50-foot sphere around that source. With our equipment, there is no safety hazard.
So whatever better than X-ray is what this is.
Yeah, that used to be one of our slogans. Better.
That's great. Let's talk about reasons to do this. One thing that comes up is Who is responsible from a litigation standpoint if you do strike something in the ground like that? Is it the digger always, or is it if the things are
Yeah,
not laid out properly? I mean, obviously, it's going to turn a fork in anyone's plans if that ends up happening. But what's the litigation of this? Like, why should organizations take this on as part of their de-risking solution?
yeah, I don't want to be, presumptive enough to, yeah, I think that's something that probably gets worked out between the contractor and the owner, whoever's property is. But what I would say is when a contractor is, I actually had the chairman of one of our better customers tell me this. He said, Matt, as dependent as GPRS is on us for repeat business, we are just as dependent on the facilities that we work in whenever they have a project or renovation on their site, that we don't want them to go out to bid every single time. We'd like them to just be a partner and be dependent on us.
Yeah.
And if we know that there is an opportunity to minimize risk, to minimize damage, when anytime we put a bucket into the ground or anytime we put a saw blade into concrete, if we know that there's a solution to minimize our risk and we don't employ it, we have the potential to jeopardize that relationship with that company that we are dependent on that repeat business from. And he views that as the greatest piece of the value proposition that GPRS offers to his company, and I would say the enhanced safety performance from minimizing that risk and the dangers that can be associated with striking an underground utility or maybe even a high voltage electrical conduit that's embedded within a concrete slab.
How did this happen with facilities where they don't already have all of this laid out for new work? And is it something that people are doing now as part of their groundwork and construction? Is it something people should be doing from the very beginning at sites? Like, where does this process? Obviously, there's a reactive part of this process, but is there a proactive part of this process for businesses as well?
That is the more progressive companies in our customer base. We have seen them shift over the 22 years that we've been in business, where yes, it used to be very reactive. Hey Matt, we're digging out here, and we just hit power. Before we dig the rest of this, can you come out and check for utilities? Now, over the last 10 or 15 years, that mindset has shifted, where instead of calling us after they've hit something, it's, hey, we're going to be digging next week. Here's the site. Can you go out and lay out the utilities? We'll have somebody meet you out there and show you the path of the excavation. One of the new things that we're working on, because we see this over and over again, Jason, where we work at the same facilities, the same campuses, and one of the things that we see in common is the underground records, whether it be universities or hospitals, power plants, whatever it may be, they don't have very good records of what's underground. They have some records, but rarely are they consolidated with all utilities on the same plan, and those utilities are accurate. So what we're doing now is that we have this new software that we're building called Sitemap. And one of our services is that we will go to a university. It could be 1,000 acres, and we will do a full campus scan to identify all the utilities and put them onto with elevations, and we'll put them onto a full campus map with GPS coordinates for everything that we've identified. And then that customer will host the data, and the customer can go and log in real time and see everything that we've ever done on there.
Yeah, I mean, that must be very valuable for figuring out budgets, figuring out construction costs, wanting to know if something does break, where they could go to resolve those issues. Because without that, they don't even have that. They might have to dig up. I mean, I'm talking to, I'm talking to the choir here, but it does seem like it's a unexplored, very hazardous part of the job where a lot of this stuff is now kept underground.
I saw one of our LinkedIn posts today. The average cost for utility damage in the United States over the last 12 months, $56,000
Yeah.
for one utility damaged. The average fee for our services is under $2,000, for
Right.
our time on site.
That's amazing. One thing I noticed was that you also are doing like video pipe inspection services and things like that. What kind of things are you looking for in those use cases?
So interior condition surveys of sewer lines, and also cross-bore mitigation. With the rise over the last couple of decades in directional drilling, we oftentimes can't see exactly if we are drilling through anything. When I say it's not GPRS. We don't provide that service, but we will run cameras through sewers to look at the inside of that pipe to get a condition assessment, but also to see if there are other pipes that have been bored through that sewer. And compromising the integrity of that structure could lead to a collapse at some point. So it's really that interior inspection of those sewer systems.
So if in the beginning it was proactive, we just hit something, how bad is this? Come tell us, to being proactive and building these maps, what's the future do you think look like for the underground of construction like sites? Like, we have climate change shifting the ground beneath us. We have all of these things occurring. Where are your predictions and where are you aligning the business for the future?
So I think uh, bringing in some AI into our services, using augmented reality. That's one of the goals of our sitemap software in the future, is to bring in augmented reality. So if you're a facility manager at a campus or a hospital and you don't know, you'll be able to open up the GPRS app, hover your tablet or your phone over the ground, and see our marks in real time as you walk your site. Say, oh, GPRS was here on December 13th, 2023, and Matt Aston was the project manager on site, and this line was marked. It's a gas line. It's 3.5 feet from the surface, and you'll be able to follow the path of that, just holding your phone in your hand.
That's amazing. So being able to track that and actually have a physicality to the underground that we haven't had
Yeah,
with these technologies.
creating accurate records of the entire underground infrastructure blended with all utilities on site. I think that's the direction that we're heading, with our services. And we're trying to, the analogy that we've used internally is, if you go back 10 years, when Amazon started becoming more and more prevalent, nobody was expecting you to order something and then have it show up on your doorstep hours later.
Right.
But we didn't know what we wanted as consumers of that service 10 years ago. I think today, we're trying to anticipate where this market is going, what the consumers of our services are going to want in 10 years, and we're trying to be ready for when that demand comes our way.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. One of the things that, the construction industry and insurance and all these industries have a bad rap of is not adopting technology quickly, right? And then everyone's kind of has a story that in the last 5 to 7 years, they've seen a rapid adoption of technologies, proactive approaches. What have you seen has been driving that, and from like a insights perspective, like why are these companies now taking more proactive approaches and ultimately wanting, like, I would even call that technology future proactiveness, where it's like, hey, we actually have a relationship to these maps. We can see them. We can interact with them in ways that we haven't been able to before.
Yeah, I'd say two things there. Relative to the adoption, we actually commissioned McKinsey in 2020 to perform a market study, and they estimated that only 30% of our potential customer base was employing our services in mid 2020.
Yeah.
That number has certainly risen since 2020 as GPRS has doubled in size since then. But we're still on the low end of the adoption curve.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's leading to this increase in adoption now is this proven performance, where the industry is seeing and understanding it's beneficial to be, just as you said, a little more proactive in their planning and making this, part of their protocol when they're on site. Hey, before we dig, we're going to call GPRS and get them out here, days or weeks in advance instead of, hey, we're digging in 3 hours. Can you get somebody here and we're gonna go right behind them. It just gives a little bit more time to plan and have the owners and the engineers and the contractors all on the same page about what the plan is.
Yeah, I guess from a risk manager standpoint, it also brings clarity to potential risks that a lot of organizations, if only 30%, are really cluing in here, that they're not even aware of, that project managers aren't going to be thinking about until it's after a mitigation. I think this is something that all of our modern risk managers I want you to listen to. If you're running construction sites, you're not doing this kind of work. How are you ensuring and de-risking this situation? And that's something definitely we'll talk about in our forums and in our community.
One of our best finds in our company's history. We were on a job in Oklahoma, a very long excavation, a miles long excavation. And it was not on the excavation plan. No one knew this was there. We found a natural gas force main, and it was live.
Yeah.
And they were using the excavation was they were using a ditcher, so it goes 7 feet wide, 7 feet deep, about 2 miles per day. It would have ripped right through that force main. I don't know what would have happened to the crew. I shudder to think what would have happened to the crew.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it was only 2 feet deep.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's crazy. That must also feel good about what you're doing from yeah, we're helping businesses, but also, you are saving lives out there when this stuff is so dangerous, right? And reputations. I mean, I think that's another big thing the risk managers need to look at. If you had hit that and your crew had been harmed and that job would have been screwed, that would be really bad for your overall reputation as an organization. So I think it's critical. One of the hard things about having a podcast that talks about modern risk managers is you sometimes have to talk about hard problems that are real, like harm done to the team and your reputation, as being vital things that need to be considered in order to mitigate your risk. Last question I have for you is in construction and this line, because of the history of slow adoption, because of the talent force, retiring during COVID and in construction suffering that. One of the things that people are concerned about who I talk to on this podcast are the future of the industry, both in the technology side and in the pure construction talent side. What's a piece of advice that you would give to someone who's entering into the workforce that would make them excited about coming into this industry?
Well, I think it's fun to be part of something. I mean, we're 20 years in, which sounds like a long time, but it's really not. And as you read about, what drives people, people really want to be part of something. They want to be part of building something. This is our first year in business. I was the only person in the company.
Yeah.
We've grown to about 780 people, company wide over the last 22 years, and it feels like we're creating something. We're creating an industry as we build this organization, and I would say we're writing the story, and there's a lot left to write.
Right.
And that really I would say maybe it's ground penetrating radar, maybe it's working for GPRS, but if it's not, you'll find something that you can really be part of, and you can have some ownership over the direction and whatever it is that you're creating. And I love working on construction projects because you see this thing come out of the ground, and the world around you change forever. I mean, I love driving past some of the jobs that I worked on because I remember the state they were in when I was working on them, and now I see it 20 years later as a completed and viable,
thriving businesses within those things, even, or communities or whatever it might be. Hey, Matt, I really appreciate you stopping by Brick by Brick and talking to me about this. I'm very interested in proactive technologies that really allow a more safe and profitable built world, right? To the point that you make, one of the things I love about my job is seeing people on construction sites doing the work versus it being shut down because there's some litigation issue or project issue where nobody's allowed on the site until they figure out who's to blame for the whole thing, right? I mean, the point of what all of our technologies are trying to do is get people into the field working and building the world around us. And I really thank you for your mission in that.
Well, Jason, I really enjoyed the conversation, and I thank you for the opportunity as well.
Thanks, Matt. Talk to you soon. Bye, man.